All right, folks, joining us right now on the show, his name is Neil Shulman. He owns, runs, and operates in all kinds of weather. In all kinds of weather, I believe, is a line in our alma mater, right? At the end of the third quarter, we stand arm in arm at Ben Hill Griffin Stadium, and we sing, "In all kinds of weather, we all stick together. For FLORIDA. Go Gators! In any case, Neil Shulman joins us right now for our Florida preview. ACC and SEC team preview segment right here on the line. Neil, good afternoon, my man. What's the good word?
Good afternoon, sir. You've got quite a singing voice. I like it.
Oh, man.
Don't encourage him.
Thank you so much. I'm having nothing but my ego built up today in the first break of the show.
You should hear him do plumbing jingles.
There was a
yeah.
I do a plumbing jingle as well, Neil. Can I share that with you? GS Plumbing. We're number one in the number two business. Yeah. GS Plumbing. Great.
Not bad.
What is the rest of it, Diesel? I don't have my notes in front of me.
You forgot your own tagline. Wow.
Okay, Neil, great to have you on with us, brother. Great to have you on with us. Okay, let's talk some Florida football here, man. But first, let's talk about expansion. I hate it. I don't want Oklahoma. I don't want Texas. It doesn't interest me. It doesn't excite me. Sure, part of that is that the SEC is already good enough. I'm thinking selfishly about Florida, but I think the league is already doing well. I don't think the league needs to – I think if Oklahoma and Texas join the SEC, they're no longer playing college football. They're no longer playing the same game, the same sport that everybody else is. Further, Neil, if Oklahoma and Texas are in the league, is a 3-loss Florida viewed the same as an undefeated Clemson in the ACC? I think that would be fair if those two teams are in the SEC as well. What say you? I'm against it.
I mean, it's probably comparable to say a 9-3 SEC team in this 16-team league is comparable to 12-0 or a 13-0, I guess, Clemson if they win the ACC. I will say one thing. I am not for expansion. I'll put that on the table right away. But I will say one thing. With the new deal, with the new TV deal that ESPN's got, they're going to have primetime games, you'd think. They're going to have nationally televised games all over their network. The idea of Oklahoma coming to the Swamp for a primetime game, or the Georgia Bulldogs or Alabama Crimson Tide going to Darrell K. Royal Stadium under the lights, and even renewing that Lone Star Showdown that got nixed when A&M said bye and left, are all very appealing to me. I mean, forget the money issue, which we know that's what this is all about. As a fan, that'd be awesome, but I don't think the ends justify the means here. I think a 16-team league that makes the SEC way more dominant than every other conference put together would change the sport beyond recognition, and I think that would just be the first of many dominoes to fall. I mean, I think if that happens, then the ACC goes, well, okay, maybe we go to 16 teams too, and the Big Ten and the Pac-12, and that's when you get maybe, a Boise State or a Connecticut or maybe an SMU or a Wichita State or something joining a major conference, and it just there are more questions than I think can be answered in a reasonable amount of time about this. But how you crown a conference champion? I mean, if you have 2 divisions of 8 or 4-team pods or whatever, I mean, it's just a mess, and I don't see it being helpful to the sport. I think it would be fun. It would definitely bring in money, but I don't think it would make the sport better, and I think it would make it worse.
100%. And I think it's up to the SEC to be the leader here, right? I mean, the SEC has led the way in college football now for quite some time, and I wholeheartedly agree with you. Of course, we both believe that the SEC is already good enough. Of course, we want to see Florida win the SEC sometime in the next 10 years because we haven't seen them win it at all in the last 10 years as well. So let's get to this Florida Gators team. I've heard from a few friends on this team this year, Neil, that they are less excited about this year's team than any they can remember. Look, it is a bit of a rebuilding year for the Florida Gators when you lose the talent that they had. But my personal belief, Neil, is they're in a position to surprise some people. Alabama's the only game on the schedule that I look at and I say that's a scheduled loss. Am I supposed to believe that at 5-5 LSU with revenge on our minds is a sure loss? Am I supposed to believe that 2 touchdowns better than Georgia, Florida is a surefire loss for the Gators this year? I see one surefire loss on the schedule. That's all I see. I don't see why Florida can't go 10-2 this year. What say you?
I'm not even sure I would call Alabama a surefire loss. I mean, sure, they're going to be favored. There's no doubt about that. I don't know that I'd call it a surefire loss because typically the year after Alabama wins a national title, aside from 2011 and 2012 when they went back-to-back, but aside from that, they do kind of fall back down to earth. Now, falling back down to earth for them is like 10-3, but they will lose a game here or there that maybe Vegas says they shouldn't. And the fact that would be Bryce Young's first start in the swamp in a hostile environment, maybe Florida's defense isn't going to be lights out this year, and I'll talk about that in a second, but maybe Florida can outgun them. But in any case, yeah, I understand being less excited about this year than in previous years, mainly because of the fact that Florida seemed to have it made last year, and they seemed like they were, a shoe throw by Marco Wilson away from going into a national quarterfinal game against Alabama in the SEC championship game. And even after that shoe throw, took Alabama down to the wire and fell just short. Cotton Bowl happened. No one's going to really defend what happened in that game, but I think people are using the last couple of games plus the departure of all the guys that have left us that have made such a big name for themselves as a reason to sort of overwrite what happened in the games before that, in the first 7-8 games of the year. And that was that Dan Mullen took a 2-star quarterback that was good. He was good in 2019 into a Heisman Trophy candidate. Dan Mullen is always going to have a quarterback that is good at worst, potentially great, and in some cases elite. That alone right there, if you have a quarterback that can be good, great, or elite, gives you a chance. Defense, definitely a concern, but the talent is there with Emory Jones. That's the first time he's going to have his hand-picked, signed quarterback that he himself went after. Remember, Felipe Franks and Kyle Trask were his leftovers from the previous regime. And he's got plenty of talent at receiver. He's got running back depth. It's hard to not be super excited about this team when you look at all that these guys are capable of.
Right. So can Dan Mullen, though, recruit at a high enough level to get Florida where it needs to be? We've heard the old ball coach say Florida's not going to get back to where it needs to be until they're delivering top 5 recruiting classes. Right now, Neil, the Gators are outside the top 25. Even what we are told are good classes end up 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. I believe a flaw in the Dan Mullen operation has been identified, whereas I do not believe a fatal flaw in the Kirby Smart operation has been identified. Dan Mullen is not an elite recruiter. Do we agree on that?
No, we definitely agree on that. I think he's a decent recruiter, but decent isn't going to win you a national championship.
So do they need to make a change then?
Well, no. Because
wait. The goal at Florida is to win a national championship, right? To win the SEC.
Right.
The goal for Florida right now is to be a Tier 1 program. Florida is a Tier 2 program, Neil. You know what Tier 1 is. You don't need me to tell you the programs that are on the Tier 1 line. Florida is on the Tier 2 line, but the goal is to become a Tier 1 team, and you just told me that Florida cannot win a national championship with Dan Mullen's recruiting. Why shouldn't I replace him?
Well, okay, so what I will say is I don't think Florida can consistently be an Alabama or an Ohio State or an Oklahoma with Dan Mullen. I just don't see that. But what I will say is I believe that Dan Mullen has Florida at a place where the floor, the worst that they'll ever do, is very, very desirable. Like 8-4, which if you really translate that to the schedule they were supposed to have, swap out A&M and Arkansas for FSU and South Alabama and Eastern Washington and New Mexico State, is 11-3. Like, that's the worst it's ever going to be. I would roll the dice and say, okay, there's going to be a year where he catches lightning in a bottle, all the stars align, and he takes Florida on a magic carpet ride to a national title. Because we've seen coaches worse than him do it. We saw Ed Orgeron do it. We saw Gene Chizik do it. You have everything fall into a row with the development skills that he's got. It's hard to say Florida can have a better coach than him who can have Florida at such a high floor and, at their worst, be so close to being a Tier 1 program.
I agree with you. I agree with you. I think the floor with Dan Mullen is 8-4, and I think that's a hell of a floor to have. Right? Some might say Florida might hit that floor this season. with Emory Jones and with a more run-oriented attack and with an offensive line that's been a work in progress. Todd Grantham, why in the hell, Neil, was he retained? That defense last year was an abomination, man. That defense last year, if they just had a typical Florida defense, I think the Gators are in the college football playoff last year.
Well, if they have an average defense, they're in the college football playoff last year. Why did he retain him? Because he's stubborn. Because when Florida hired Dan Mullen, there were whispers, there were grumbles from Mississippi State fans like, yeah, we miss him. That sucks. We wish we kept him. But there are going to be a couple things that maybe we can do better with a new coach, and one of them being stubbornness. I mean, Dan Mullen is, by all accounts, a stubborn New England Yankee. That's the guy he is. He believes that his way is going to get it done. Anyone who tells him different is wrong. His way is going to work, and that's just the way it is. So keeping Todd Grantham means he's telling us, I know better than you who the best defensive coordinator could possibly be for the University of Florida. And I watched the games. I watched the tape. I agree that it's very, very hard to defend the job that Todd Grantham's done. But what I will say is the defense this year has to be better. It just has to be. And my issue with the defense isn't even really that Florida has 5 games in its history where they gave up 600-plus yards, and 3 of them came in the span of 12 games in 2020. The issue with me, or for me with Grantham, is that whenever Florida faces an opposing quarterback that's adequate or better, they lose. And that's something that has to be done. There's something has to be done about that. Like in 2018, Joe Burrow and LSU come in the swamp, and Florida wins. Brad Stewart, pick 6, electric atmosphere, great win. Aside from that, the best quarterback that Todd Grantham has defeated at Florida, probably Matt Corral, and in his first start, and Florida had to outgun him in that game. And after that, it really drops off. I mean, you got guys like Jake Bentley and Bo Nix and DeAndre Francois, Nick Fitzgerald. So, I mean, there's a clear pattern here of every time a quarterback who can take advantage of defensive busts faces the Gators, he shreds them. And that's really what concerns me. And I know that Florida's defense will statistically be better this year because it can't be worse. But that's the thing that gets me like, okay, we're going to be good offensively, but this defense is going to cost us again, even though it will be statistically better. And so I can't defend bringing Grantham back. So I'm forced to just sit back and, cross my fingers and hope for the best.
Right. Okay, so Neil, give us 3 players to watch for on this Gators roster.
Well, number one is, Emory Jones has to be the obvious one. So I'll go away from him because that's the one that everyone's probably expecting. So one I'll say is DeJuan Black. That is a linebacker that has transferred into the University of Florida that, if you haven't heard his story...
I think he originally committed to Florida, right? He originally committed and had to go the JUCO route and always wanted to be a Gator, and now he's here. So DeJuan Black is number 1 for you.
He is number 1 because a lot of kids, when they're playing football at a young age, they dream about going to the NFL and as their football dream. DeJuan Black's dream is to be a Florida Gator. And that makes him very dangerous for opponents because he is on a mission. And at this level, really, everyone is very talented. But this is what's going to separate him from everyone else he goes against. And Florida's linebacker play last year was iffy, let's just say. And, Ventrell Miller's back, and he's going to be big. But if he gets some help from Black, Florida's linebacker core can go to a major strength. Number 2, I'll say, is Jacob Copeland. He had some drop issues last year. There was the game against Tennessee where he kind of looked weird at Trayvon Grimes after Grimes caught the touchdown. Like, hey, man, that's my touchdown. And, some fans kind of got on him for that. But he's been there now 3 years, and it's his time. He's got the number 1 jersey. He's got plenty of talent. You being in South Carolina, I'm sure remember the game where he just balled out against the Gamecocks in 2019. So he's a guy that's going to have to step up and do that consistently. And number 3, I'll toss a coin between Daquan Newkirk and Antonio Shelton, the 2 interior lineman transfers from Auburn and Penn State, respectively, because Florida's defensive line last year was okay at times in getting pressure on the quarterback, but could not stop the run very well. And these guys are instant plug-and-play pieces at those interior positions. So Florida's run-stopping game should definitely be better this year.
Neil Shulman, folks, covers the Florida Gators for In All Kinds of Weather. That is a site that he owns, that he operates, that he has built from the ground up with his own blood, sweat, and tears, and it's been great to see his success. Follow him on Twitter at All Kinds Weather on social media. Neil, great catching up with you, bud, and man, I'll be pulling for you. You know I'll be pulling with you once we get going here in September, all right?
Yes, sir. Can't wait. 44 days till kickoff.
Can't wait, brother. Can't wait. He does something really cool, by the way, online, guys. Like every single day as it gets closer to kickoff, he puts like 44 days until kickoff. Then he posts a Florida Gator highlight. 44 is for the interception yards in a touchdown return that Florida had in 1999 against Georgia to win the world's largest outdoor cocktail party. And then he shows you the highlight in the post, too. It's pretty cool. So anyway, there is your Florida football preview for the day. I see Florida at 9-3 at worst, 10-2 at best this year. Another good year for Dan Mullen, who's got to improve at recruiting in order to become great. I'll give you some observations that I had on the ACC kickoff in Charlotte. When Offsides continues right after this, we're live on location, Ingalls Markets, 8004, Warren H. Abernathy Highway. Right here on Offsides, we are ESPN Upstate.